Hi, this is a short video to show an average labour. So as I said, we have the contraction scroll here, and these little hills represent the contractions and these straight bits represent the rest periods in between. So with the first stage of labour, remember we talked about the cervix having to shorten first of all, and you'd be in early labour, or sometimes they call it the latent phase of labour, and these are the contractions that we were talking about that would be lasting maybe 20 seconds and then maybe half an hour or 20-minute, half an hour gap in between, and then another contraction that lasted for 20 seconds. And I guess you could think, if you think that the whole of this to the birth of the baby would probably take between 12 and 18 hours in a first labour, and maybe between sort of 5 and 12 hours in a second labour, that with this first bit you might be thinking sort of 6 hours maybe, or maybe 8 hours. Then we're going to move up to this part where the contractions start getting more intense, and this is the bit that we refer to here as active labour, or established labour, sometimes it will say. I don't know if you can see that on there. Between sort of 3 and 4 centimetres. So these are the ones that we were talking about that would last about a minute, and for most women would have sort of a rise in sensation and then a peak and then a lessening off of the contraction. And those are the ones that we talked about, that you would have 3 of those in a 10-minute period. So one contraction lasting about a minute, a break of 2.5, 3 minutes, and then another contraction lasting a minute. And then, as you can see, these are building up in intensity and length. So really, really intense contractions. These ones, as you're going up towards sort of 8-9 centimetres, 90 seconds would probably be how long these last, with a tiny break in between, as you can see. And then this is the bit that we talked about in terms of transition, in terms of the workings of the fibres of the uterus. So initially in this first stage, the fibres have all been pulling upwards and opening the cervix, and now they're transitioning to start pushing down, like that coffee plunger analogy that we spoke about. So this is the stage of transition, heading towards 9-10 centimetres. And then very often it says latent on here, but usually it's just a rest period that we call it, from the first stage to the second stage, where there might be a little break, no contractions, and then the second stage contractions are going to start. And with these, they usually last a bit longer, and you get sort of, we've spoken about this, but you get sort of 3 surges, 3 downward sensations within a contraction. And then, as you can see here, just a little bit of a longer resting period in between those. And then just to show at the end of the scroll, just after the baby is born, that there's these contractions that do happen then, which are not so intense, more like the ones at the beginning, which help to birth or deliver the placenta. So I'm hoping that's quite a good overview. I guess in terms of timescales, it's really hard to say about a timescale, but if you were thinking about this kind of being up to active labour, sort of 8 hours or so, and then maybe often sort of another kind of 4 or 5 hours possibly in this bit, and then maybe sort of an hour or 2 for the second stage.